Well, this morning I decided to, I'm still in the middle of packing up, but for some reason I had this idea to make this video about my bike. Now, my brother had mentioned that with all the mods that I've done to the bike, that I should maybe pass that on a little bit. Everything I've done with it, everything's been pretty inexpensive, all in all. I've basically done it the poor man's way. Start with the suspension. My front forks, what I did with the front forks, because I had an accident there a couple of years ago with it. You can see the scratch on the side of the bike here, and it was a pretty good one. I bent the forks, so they wanted $400, I think $400 a piece for the tubes from Suzuki. And there's no way I was going to pay that, because I didn't know if the bike the frame was damaged or anything, so I didn't want to invest that much. So I got on eBay and I got both tubes for about $180, I think it was. And I got them in. There was a little bit of rust on the inside of the tubes. The chrome on the outside was perfect, but there was a little bit of rust on the inside. All I did was I cleaned it up really good. And while I did that, I bought some progressive springs. So I replaced the old springs with the progressive springs, and I put actually 15 weight. Now originally I'm pretty sure it had 5 weight fork oil in it, but because I know I'm always riding pretty heavy most of the time, I said I thought you could get 10 weight or 15 weight, and I decided to go with 15 weight. And at the beginning I thought maybe I had made a mistake, because it was quite a bit stiffer, a little bit rougher ride when I wasn't fully loaded. But now for this traveling, it seems to be working out really well. And I think I paid about $150 for the progressive springs, and then the oil, whatever that cost. So that was fairly inexpensive. I also had bought these highway pegs. You can see them here. Even in my accident and that, they never got damaged. They worked really well. I've been really happy with them so far. They don't move. And yeah, what I did at the front here is I have these, they're like Pelican bags, but they're from Princess Auto, and I got them on sale. So I think I paid like if you're to buy them from Pelican, they'd be close to $100 a piece. And I bought them on sale from Princess Auto, and they were about $15 a piece. And all I did was I took some P-clamps here and I strapped her down, and I used some stainless steel fasteners. So I did that, and I bolted it obviously to the engine guard here on both sides. And I want to do that to help to bring a little bit of the weight, give me some more secured storage, and to bring a little bit of the weight forward, so it wasn't all the weight on the back. I don't really have that heavy of stuff in there. I keep my stove, in this one I keep my stove and sprays and POL, petroleum products in this one. And in the other one I actually keep my hammock, my chair, and my tarp in the other one. So they're not really heavy. It just kind of brings the bulk and a little bit of weight forward. Going to on top, well, actually sticking with the suspension in the back, what I did was I looked into replacing my spring here with a progressive shock. Now that was going to cost me anywhere between $800 and $1,500, well actually between $800 and $2,000, depending on what I wanted to get. And I obviously did not want to spend that much money. So I did a little bit of research. I found out that what a lot of guys do is they because this is the 650, they get the springs for the shock from a 1000. So I went on eBay, I bought the shock, and it ended up costing me about $100 by the time I got it home. Got it sent to me, and I put it in and bolted up perfectly, no problem. And it did two things for me actually. What it did is I already knew that it was going to raise the bike about an inch. which is okay with me because I wanted a little bit more ground clearance because I found I was a little bit too low. So that gave me an extra inch of ground clearance. And the other thing is that it made it just a little bit stiffer. And I guess there's a little bit more travel to it also. So with all those things, it didn't make a huge difference, but it did make a quite noticeable difference, and for a minimum amount of money. So actually, it's worked out pretty good. I was actually speaking to somebody the other day, and I told them about what I did with my suspension, and they kind of just laughed and said, "Yeah, you did it like the effective cheap man's way." You know, there are some drawbacks to it. It probably doesn't handle as good as if I would have spent the money on it, but for the amount of money that I would need to really do it properly, I'm not racing around, so it's more than effective for me anyways. So far, I'm very happy with it. The one of the drawbacks about putting that spring in is that my kickstand now, because the bike's higher, it leans over too much, and with all the weight on it, it actually puts way too much stress on my kickstand, I thought anyways. So what I've done is I had already bolted this little plate on the bottom, and you can buy these what do you call plates, whatever, for the kickstand, and they're about, I think I've seen them anywhere from $40 to $80, and they're really nice in that. But all I did was I took an scrap piece of an aluminum that I had, and I bolted it to the kickstand, and that cost me pennies. So that worked out really well. But now the bike's the kickstand is still a little bit too short. So what I've done is I've had this hockey puck, and what I did was I drilled into the hockey puck this string. And what I do is I leave the string up here like this. When I get on the bike, because I found that even when I was using low plates and that, they work really well, but then when you want to get on the bike, either you have to take off the plate or whatever, and then get on the bike, and the bike's leaning too much, and anyways, it's quite cumbersome. And then I met this Canadian my last trip when I was in Ireland, and he had shown me this little trick, and I was like, that's an excellent idea. So I adopted it. And anyway, so you get on the bike, you lift up the bike, and then you use the string just to pick it up. So it makes it so convenient, and it's just a little trick that you learn along the ways. I'm sure there's lots of people that know about it. For me, it was kind of new, and it was like it was a heaven sent. It's just one of those things that make life a little bit easier. I've got this trunk, this big trunk, and I've got the two panniers here on the side. Now, when I had my accident, I destroyed the panniers on the side, but the trunk was almost unscathed. I was pretty lucky. I bought these in North Bay off a guy who had made them for his Vstrom. And they cost me $350 because I said, no way I'm gonna go out and spend any more big money. I said, I'm gonna do this the cheap man's way. So, and they were designed almost exactly like I would have done it, but I found he had also an aluminum bracket made for these bags. And one day in Calgary, we had a really bad wind. I had a tarp on top of my bike, and it worked like a sail. Anyways, the bike just fell over, and it had broken the aluminum brackets, because of course they're only aluminum. So I was thinking about getting it all welded. I was going to try and weld it myself and this and that, and then I thought about it, and I said, yeah, you know what, that aluminum is going to cause me problems on my trip. And I still had these brackets from my old bag, and I thought about it, and it had been like a couple of months I had been thinking about how I'm gonna what I'm gonna do with about these aluminum brackets. And then I remembered because I was trying to sell these on eBay, not eBay, on Kijiji, and then I thought, oh, I got those brackets, you know what, I'm gonna try and see if I can adapt the bags for the brackets. Anyways, it took a little bit of drilling, a little bit of time. Actually, it took me about by the time everything, about 4 to 6 hours to actually figure everything out, get the fasteners, get my tools and whatever, and then adapt these brackets. And actually, it works out really well. And I've hit some pretty good bumps, and I've been on some washboards, and so far no issues whatsoever. I'm really happy with that. So that was like a cheap way of going. I had these here other brackets for containers on the back. I had those on my other bags, and they weren't damaged at all, so I just transferred them over onto these bags. Now we got these tubes. Now I wanted to try and keep all the heavy stuff sent more to the center of the bike, the center of gravity, and get it inside. Also much easier accessibility. So and they've got tubes like this that you can buy. They're smaller than this, but they're like anywhere from $50 to $80 a piece. And again, there's no way I was going to pay that, because that was going to be you know, close to $200 just for tubes. And I said, oh, there's got to be another way. And then I thought about it, and I came up with these this PCV tubing for houses. Anyways, I went out and I bought everything. I think everything cost me, like all the pieces and I think 20 foot of tubing or 18 foot of tubing was like about $50. And then I just made them up, and they work really good. They seal. The good thing is that they're watertight. And I just made a couple of little chains that I screwed into there, and so they're secured. And what I put in there is mostly, I've got in this one actually I have some medical stuff, my medicines and what have you in this one, and then the other two I've got my tools and a lot of parts and tools. So that's heavy steel, metal, and that's, again, so that keeps it low. As you can see, it's about as low as it's going to get, and it keeps it to the center of the bike, so it affects me a lot less for weight. So that's worked out really well. I've got this little box on the back. That's actually a Pelican box, and it's a funny story behind that. I was looking for a windscreen for the replace for the old one, and there's the little clip-ons that you can put on top of the screen here that help. They're a little deflector, and to buy them new, I think they're about $100 or that. Anyways, I was looking at one on Kijiji, and it was $40 the guy was selling, I think $30 or $40. So I went over and talked to him, and he was like he had a, I forget what kind of bike he had, but I think he actually had a Vstrom, because we were oh yes, he did have a Vstrom. And then we were talking, and he was really good. He admitted that it didn't really work that well, and he found it that it got in the way of his vision, the brackets. So it was kind of irritating, and that's why he was selling it. Anyways, as I was talking to him, he said that he had this Pelican box here, and he asked me, he goes, he's not going to put it back on. He said, he asked me if I could use it, and I said, well, sure. I asked him how much. He said, well, no, if you're going to use it, then I'll just give it to you. So I got that for free from him, and that was really excellent. And I just keep a couple of little tools, and I actually keep my my disc lock. When I want to secure the bike a little bit more, I've got a disc lock, and I got it in here. So it's and again, it's secureable. It's got a lock on it. You know, any of these things, the locks and all that, some people might say something about that being such a small lock. But if somebody wants to get in there, they're going to get in. So it's no use using huge locks and this and that. They'll just take a hammer to it. They'll do whatever it takes to get in there. So all it is to stop the crime of opportunity. It just keeps somebody from going by, and it's something that's really easy. It's open and and take a look inside. This stops those kind of thieves. As somebody who really wants to get to it, somebody who really wants to steal the bike, they're just gonna do it, no matter what you do. So it's just to stop crimes of opportunity. Actually, just thinking about that, yesterday I was talking to a guy. I had a guy take a picture of me in town. Anyways, he went to go take a picture. I guess what he had done, he had dropped his cigarettes. And when he went to go take a picture of me, this other guy just walked over, picked up the cigarettes, and I kind of saw him in the corner of my eye. And I didn't know what was happening, but I kind of like, this got me to turn my head. And when I turned my head, the other guy looked too, because he looked in the same direction. He saw him pick up the cigarettes. So he walks over to the guy, and they had a little bit of a discussion. The guy handed back the cigarettes. But again, that's kind of like just a crime of opportunity. The guy knew that he had dropped the cigarettes. Instead of picking them up and say, hey, you dropped something, he just scooped it up and he was just going to walk off with it. So it just stops those kinds of situations. So anyways, yeah. So what else we got here? There we go. I got that. Oh, we'll go to the front here. The seat, it's I think it's a Saddleman seat. I've been pretty happy with it. It works. It's been working out pretty good there. I've got a backrest here, and in this situation, I didn't really need it, but it is kind of nice because it keeps the this is my food bag here. And what I did with the food bag is I've got another smaller food bag on the inside here, and anything that I want to try and keep really like cool, you know, like if I cooked up some meat and I wanted to keep for a day or so, I put it in there, so it's double insulated, so it keeps it as cool as it's gonna get. Yeah, so this backrest, it actually works pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it, and so I have the same seating position all the time. Then I have my tank bag here, and this came with the bike. I was actually pretty lucky when I bought this bike. I paid I think about $5,800, but it had over $3,000 worth of stuff on it. It had about $3,500 worth of stuff on it, and the bike was, when I got it, was immaculate, like a showroom condition. It was so clean. And yeah, the other thing I had done with this bike is one thing the Vstrom's bad for is vibration. So I wanted to extend the handlebars. But there's these extensions, handlebar extensions here, but they have some like rubber grommet mounting, and I found that helped quite a bit. It made it quite a bit. It was about I think it cost me about $150 by the time I got them, but they're well worth it. It got rid of a lot of the vibration, and it also lifted up the handlebars and giving me a little bit better of a riding position. Then I have here, I've got the speakers. Now, it was a lot of wiring to get these speakers in. I really enjoyed it. I'm glad I did it. But I understand why a lot of guys wouldn't do it. Because it is a lot of work, and you could easily just put on some earphones, and it would have been probably a lot cheaper. Well, not that much cheaper, because I bought these off Kijiji. I think they're about, you buy them on the internet, they're about $150, because you get the amp with it, and the wiring harness, and the speakers. And I paid $40 for it. So I got a pretty good deal, and they're brand new. The guy had bought them, and then he had planned on putting them on his bike, and he ended up selling his bike and buying a full cruiser. So he never put them in. So they're brand new for $40. So you know, I couldn't really go wrong with them, and they performed really well. I'm really happy with them. Of course, there's no real bass to it, but you know, if you want some music as you're cruising down the road, let me tell you, it's kind of nice when you got a nice day, you're feeling good, you're playing the music, and it's a good feeling to be on the bike. Yeah, and here I've got my connector for my heated here we go, connector for my heated vest. Now I've got a heated vest, I got heated not gloves but liners, and heated socks. It's you know, when you're riding in really in cold, wet conditions, it makes all the difference. It makes a miserable ride into actually an enjoyable ride, because as long as you're warm, as long as you're comfortable, you know what, and you're dry, that's not a big deal. It really isn't a big deal to be on the bike. One of the other things I did here, because I run with so much weight, the handling, the handling is okay, but sometimes it gets a little bit of a speed wobble. So I thought maybe I had bought this dampener, and I bought it off of eBay. Here we go, right here, and it cost me like 40 bucks to buy like a good quality one with the brackets. It would have came with the brackets, and that would have cost me about $150 to $200, but I paid $40 and I made my own brackets, so it wasn't too bad. I had this at work. I had some of this stainless steel that we had taken off some brackets, and I had kept that aside because I kind of a little bit of a pack rat when it comes to stuff like this, and I knew the stainless steel bar might come in handy later, and then I thought about it, and it's like, okay, here, I know what that's good for. So I made these brackets, which stiffens everything up, and yeah, I don't know how much it really helps, but it doesn't really hurt, so I gave that a try. The steering is pretty good. When I'm running, when I start to get pretty deep into a corner sometimes, if I'm depending on the situation, if I'm going uphill, it takes a little bit of weight off the front and it gets a little bit shaky in a deep corner, so I have to really be careful in the conditions and how I'm riding. But that's normal for what the bike is rated to. When me on the bike, it's over 1,000 pounds, so I'm sure the rating is way underneath that. I'm not sure what it is, but I'm sure it's way underneath that. So yeah, that's a few things. I also put in this charger, and it's not really for the charger that I put it in there. I put it in there more for the it's got a volt gauge here, and that's why I really got it. But geez, it was only like 15 bucks or something. I bought it from China, and as you see here, it's all fogged up. Last night I forgot to put this cap on, so I got wet in there, so it's gonna probably take a while before that dries out, if ever. We'll see. But excuse me. But it's worked really well. I plug in my phone here, and that's all I've used it for. For me, the most important part is as long as the digital gauge for voltage is working, yeah, that's good enough for me. So, because I do run a lot of extra stuff off of this, I charge my phone, and I charge all my electronic stuff, and my laptop. Actually, here, this is another thing I put in. This is a connection, and I've got an inverter, a little small inverter there, and I use it to charge my laptop. I try not to use that too much because I know it kind of stresses the alternator a little bit. So I try to charge my my laptop whenever I get a chance. At a McDonald's, or when I stay at a campground, I try to charge it right up. So, and usually, so far on my trip, I've only charged it maybe 4 or 5 times with the bike. So it just kind of takes it. Try not to put too much stress on the alternator. I do have an extra stator with me. I've got an extra regulator. I've got chain and sprockets. Chain with sprockets. What I've done with the sprocket is I went to one more tooth in the front sprocket, which gives me drops the RPMs about 400 to 500 RPMs, which is probably giving me a little bit better. Does a couple of things. Gives me better fuel economy, I believe. And also it gives me a little bit longer chain life, because the front sprocket is a little bit bigger. The chain doesn't doesn't get pinched as much, because that's where it's really getting pinched the most, is in the front sprocket here. So being a little bit bigger makes it a little bit easier on the chain, so it makes it gives me a little bit more life on my chain. That's from the reading I've done. That's what seems to be the consensus. So and I think it's worked out pretty well so far. The other thing, I had bought this extra clutch cable. I've never had a clutch cable break on me, but I've read and read about guys that it's happened to and that. And I've always had this clutch cable with me, but I was going through YouTube, and there was a couple of guys who had mentioned running the cable right beside the old cable, so that it'd be easier to fix on the side of the road. Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I did it, but to me that's not that big of a deal. The reason I really did it is that then you always have it with you, and you don't have to have a spot for storing, because I always kept it in the trunk, but it was always kind of, I wasn't in the way, but I always saw it there and that. But having it mounted beside the old one here, I always have it, even if I go for a little joyride there during the day or whatever, and I lighten up my load, I always have it with me. And yeah, I thought it was an excellent idea, so it's always there. And here's the top, and I just used a little bit of tape to seal it all up. Yeah, so that's well, that's a few of the mods. I'm sure I'm missing, oh, this windscreen. It was 250 bucks. I didn't want to pay that much for a windscreen. I took a look around and this and that, but the reading I did on it, and a couple of guys I talked to, they said that because one of the things with the Vstrom is you do get a little bit of tire noise coming up through, and it seems to hit the windshield or whatever, and comes up into your face. And they said, and I met one guy that he said he's bought like 5 or 6 different windshields to try to get rid of that tire noise, and he said the only one that worked was this airflow from GV. So I finally broke down when I had my accident. I broke the windscreen, so I was like, okay, if I'm gonna replace it, I might as well get something that I'm gonna want. And I'm really happy with it so far. I've got 2 cracks here, and I thought the cracks were from the bolts being too tight or whatever, but just the other day I had the bike just fall over on me. I had it a little bit too upright, a big gust of wind came over, and the bike just fell over. Well, when it fell over, it hit the bags, because it was fully loaded. Hit the bags and the tire here, and it actually almost flipped right on its head. And when it did that, I noticed that the second crack had all of a sudden appeared. I was like, oh, okay, because the bike had fallen over a couple of times, and I was like, oh, okay, that's what happened. Is that it's probably hit the ground, and then it pushed on here, and I was lucky it didn't break the windscreen, and only cracked it. And it doesn't seem like I marked the crack on the right side anyways, and it doesn't seem like the cracks are traveling at all. So I'm not going to concern myself with it unless the cracks seem to be traveling. If they're traveling, then I'll drill them out and I'll seal them and that, but for now I'm not going to really worry about it. And one of the last things I'm going to mention is I've got right here, you can see the low light here, I bought a security system for it. Now again, I bought this security system off of Kijiji. And how much did I pay? I didn't pay very much. I think again about 40 bucks, and they're like $150–200. And again, it was something somebody had bought. They had planned on putting in their bike, and they never got around to doing it. And yeah, so I got it like for $40 or $50. And then again, there was some wiring to be done, and it just gives me that peace of mind when the bike's so loaded up, because it has a vibration, has a mercury switch and also a vibration sensor on it. So when I go in and do some shopping and that, I can hit it and I leave everything on the bike. If somebody, because it is fairly sensitive, if somebody just moves the bag like this or does this, oh, it'll go off for sure. So so this gives me that little bit of peace of mind. Like I said, if somebody really wants to steal it, if somebody really wants to take something, they're just going to do it. That's not going to stop them. But it's just that extra little bit to help with those crimes of opportunity. One of the things too is the my disc lock also has a sensor in it, so if the bike moves, it'll go off too. So with both that and with the the alarm system and a disc lock, and I actually have a lock with a cable on the bike too, so if need be, I could actually lock it, put around the frame and the tire and around something solid, and I can chain it down. So you know, I haven't used the chain and the lock and the cable yet. I used it to secure my tires once, but that was it. But yeah, so that's my bike. I'm sure I'm missing a few things, and if I remember them there later, maybe I'll make another video and yeah, discuss those. So there you go. Those are some of the mods I've done with the bike. They're all, you know, the poor man's way of doing it, and but everything's worked out really well. All the mods I've done with them, I'm really happy with them. And oh geez, here we go. A couple of things I did. I put the switch here for, I got some fog lights, and they're right here. But with the tires here, I never use them. It's not that big of a deal. The fog lights came with the bike. I almost never ride at night. That's one of my rules, that I don't drive at night. You know, very rarely will I run at night. The other thing I've got here is I've got a switch for the ABS. So if I get into like some gravel or sand or whatever, I can switch off my ABS here. And I haven't really even used it, and a couple of times I've been in gravel and that I actually should have used it. I just forgot about it, to be honest with you. But yeah, that's a couple of other things there. Another day I'll show you the wiring that I did, and I've cleaned it up as good as I could. I guess it could be a little bit better, but it's actually not bad right now. Yeah, so oh geez, I'm always thinking another thing. I had these Rotopack. Now I had bought them for another bike, from what was it? That was a Buell, my Buell, when I had my Buell. Anyways, and I've had these for about 4 years, almost 5 years, and I was going to sell them on Kijiji, and I decided that, you know what, I'll mount them to the top of my trunk. Now I didn't want to mount them to the side of my panniers, because then it'd make it way too wide, and I didn't want to really put it on top, because then that's a lot of weight on top when they're full. But as I mentioned in another video, when I fill up the water, it's usually only at the end of my ride, so I'm only riding for about 20 minutes, anywhere from 10 minutes to half an hour at the most, with the water full up here. And if I put fuel, if I use the jerry can, then what I generally speaking will do is I'll take it and I'll put it in the my food bag, or between my food bag or in the panniers, and I'll find another spot, because I won't run with it for an extended time with all that weight on top. I'll put it somewhere else. But I haven't had to use it. I've got this jerry can that I use for fuel, that I use basically for my stove, and for when if I happen to run a little bit low. And I've done that a few times, trying to find a cheaper gas station or whatever. But okay, I think that's about 4 or 5 times I said that was it for the video. So for this video, that's gonna be it. That's a half an hour video. So okay guys, any questions, just shoot me a message, and we'll talk to you after. Okay, bye bye.